The aroma of freshly brewed coffee, a rich dark scent that always signaled the start of our adventures, slowly filled the compact space of Vinny, our trusty camper van. Outside, the sun was just beginning to paint the sky in hues of soft pink and gold, filtering through the leaves of the ancient oak tree under which we'd parked for the night. Mark was already up, humming a tuneless melody as he peered at a well-creased map spread across the small dinette table. We'd spent the last few days in a rather charming but decidedly bustling little town in the French countryside, and lovely as it was, the call of the wild, the deep, silent wild, was getting louder. I stretched, feeling the familiar contentment of waking up in our little home on wheels, a feeling that hadn't diminished one bit even after 3 years on the road, even as we both sailed past the 50-year milestone. "Morning, sleepyhead," Mark said, his eyes twinkling. "Got that look on your face again?" "What look is that?" I asked, pouring myself a mug of the precious coffee. "The let's get utterly and wonderfully lost look," he replied, grinning. "I think I've found just the spot. Remember that couple we met at the market yesterday? The ones with the ancient Land Rover?" I nodded, sipping the coffee. "The ones who looked like they'd just stepped out of a wilderness documentary?" "Yes, I remember. They mentioned something about a hidden valley, didn't they?" My heart gave a little flutter of anticipation. This was exactly what I craved. Not just quiet, but a place where the loudest sound was the wind in the trees or the flow of a river. Mark tapped a spot on the map with his finger. "Here. They called it Le Val Secret, the Secret Valley. Said the track in is a bit sporty, but the payoff is immense. Pure, unadulterated nature. No facilities, no people, just peace." That word, sporty, was often a charming understatement used by seasoned overlanders to describe a track that might well test the limits of our beloved, but not quite all-terrain, Vinny. Still, the allure of a secret valley was too strong to resist. This was the core of why we traded our predictable suburban life for this roaming existence, the promise of discovery, of finding those quiet corners of the world that still felt untouched. The day's adventure, then, was clear: we were going to attempt to find Le Val Secret. The challenge wasn't just navigation, it was whether Vinny, and perhaps our nerves, were up to the task. "Sporty, eh?" I said, trying to sound nonchalant, though a little thrill of apprehension mixed with excitement ran through me. "Sounds like our kind of challenge. What do you think, Vinny?" I patted the dashboard affectionately. Our van, a converted panel van, had been our reliable companion through mountain passes and coastal roads, but deep, rutted forest tracks were a different beast altogether. We spent the next hour preparing. This wasn't just a case of packing a picnic. It was about ensuring Vinny was ready, checking tire pressures, securing everything inside that could rattle or break, and packing our just-in-case bag with extra water, a first aid kit, a powerful torch, and some high-energy snacks. Mark double-checked the recovery gear, tow rope, shackles, traction mats, things we hoped we'd never need but were always grateful to have. "Right," he said, finally folding the map. "Adventure calls. Shall we answer?" His enthusiasm was infectious, and any lingering doubts I had were swept away. "Absolutely," I replied, my smile wide. "Let's go find this valley." We pulled out from under our friendly oak, waving goodbye to the sleepy farmstead where we'd spent a peaceful night. The initial part of the journey was on tarmac roads, winding through picturesque villages with stone houses and vibrant flower boxes. The sun climbed higher, the sky a brilliant, cloudless blue. It was the kind of day that felt full of promise. Mark drove, his focus absolute, while I navigated, calling out directions and occasionally pointing out a particularly beautiful view or a quirky roadside sign. "According to our adventurous friends," I said, consulting my notes scribbled on the back of a receipt, "the turnoff is about 5 kilometers after the village with the crooked church spire." Soon enough, the crooked spire appeared, leaning jauntily to one side as if perpetually curious about something on the ground. And then, just as predicted, we saw it, not so much a road as a faint suggestion of a track, disappearing into the dense embrace of a forest. It was unpaved, narrow, and already looked a little intimidating. "This is it," Mark said, slowing Vinny to a crawl. "The gateway to Le Val's secret." Or possibly Le Val stuck in the mud. He had a way of injecting humor into potentially tense situations, one of the many things I loved about him. We both peered down the track. It was overgrown in places, with branches reaching out like grasping arms. The surface looked uneven, a mixture of dirt and loose stones. "Well," I said, taking a deep breath. "It certainly looks authentic." We'd faced rough tracks before, in the Scottish Highlands and the remote parts of Spain, but each new one always brought a fresh wave of, "Can we actually do this?" We edged Vinny onto the track. The familiar smooth tarmac roar was replaced by the crunch of gravel under our tires and the rhythmic squeak of the suspension as it began its work. The trees closed in around us, sunlight dappling through the canopy, creating a mosaic of light and shadow on the path ahead. It was beautiful, undeniably, but also a little claustrophobic. The track twisted and turned, climbed and dipped. Mark's knuckles were white on the steering wheel as he carefully navigated around protruding rocks and deep ruts. I found myself holding my breath on several occasions, especially when the van tilted at an alarming angle. We encountered our first real obstacle about a kilometer in. A fallen tree branch, too thick to simply drive over and too heavy to move easily, lay across the path. "Okay, Plan B," Mark announced, switching off the engine. The sudden silence was profound, broken only by the chirping of unseen birds and the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. This was the reality of seeking out truly wild spots. It wasn't always an easy drive to a stunning viewpoint. Sometimes, it required effort, problem-solving, and a willingness to get your hands dirty. We got out the small foldable saw we carried for exactly such occasions. It took us a good 20 minutes of concerted effort, taking turns, our faces flushed and our arms aching, but eventually, the offending branch was cut into manageable pieces and dragged to the side of the track. A small victory, but it felt significant. The track worsened. What started as sporty was now bordering on mildly terrifying. At one point, we came to a section that was deeply rutted and muddy from recent rains. Mark stopped Vinny again. "I'm not sure about this bit, Kaz," he said, his voice tinged with concern. "If we get bogged down here, we're a long way from any help." This was the moment of decision. Turn back, defeated, and find a more sensible, accessible campsite. Or push on, risking getting stuck for the prize of that secret valley. I got out and walked ahead, testing the ground with my boots. It was soft, very soft. "Maybe if we use the traction mats?" I suggested, trying to sound more confident than I felt. The allure of the untouched, the truly remote, was a powerful magnet. We decided to give it a go, but cautiously. Mark would drive, and I would stand outside, guiding him, ready with the traction mats if the wheels started to spin. He engaged low gear, and Vinny crept forward. The engine whined in protest, the wheels churned, spitting mud. For a heart-stopping moment, I thought we were going to get stuck. "More to the left." I shouted over the engine noise. "Keep the momentum." He skillfully maneuvered the van, his face a mask of concentration. Inch by agonizing inch, Vinny clawed its way through the muddy patch, finally reaching firmer ground on the other side. We both let out a simultaneous whoop of relief and triumph. Mark leaned out of the window, grinning. Never a dull moment, eh? After that particular trial, the track, thankfully, began to improve slightly, or perhaps we were just becoming more accustomed to its rugged nature. It opened up a little, and we caught glimpses of rolling hills through the trees. Then, as we rounded a bend, the forest thinned, and there it was. Or at least, what we hoped was the entrance to the valley. The track descended steeply into a wide, verdant basin, cradled by tree-covered slopes. It was breathtaking. "I think," I whispered, almost reverently, "we might have found it." We parked Vinny at the top of the descent, deciding to scout the final approach on foot before committing the van. The air here felt different, cleaner, fresher, imbued with the scent of pine and damp earth. We grabbed our small day pack and started to walk down the incline. The path was still rough, but manageable. The further we descended, the more the beauty of the valley revealed itself. A small stream gurgled nearby, its water crystal clear as it tumbled over moss-covered rocks. Wildflowers dotted the grassy clearings in vibrant splashes of color, purple, yellow, and white. And the silence, oh, the silence. It was the kind of profound quiet that settles deep in your soul, a silence broken only by nature's own symphony. "This is incredible," Mark breathed, his earlier tension completely gone, replaced by a look of awe. We walked for another 10 minutes until we found it, a perfectly flat, grassy area right next to the stream, sheltered by a stand of mature birch trees. It was idyllic, a wild camper's dream. The strategic decision was clear, this was our spot. The challenge now was getting Vinny down the steep, narrow track and into this haven without mishap. "Right," Mark said, rubbing his hands together with a renewed sense of purpose. Operation Vinny descent is a go. We walked back up to the van, our steps lighter, our spirits soaring. The earlier struggles, the mud, the fallen branch, all seemed like a small price to pay for what lay ahead. The key insight, perhaps, was that sometimes the greatest rewards lie just beyond the edge of your comfort zone, requiring that little extra push, that leap of faith. And teamwork, always teamwork. We knew we could rely on each other, our unspoken communication honed by years of shared adventures and the occasional shared predicament. Getting Vinny down that final stretch required meticulous care. I walked ahead, clearing away any loose stones or low-hanging branches that might scratch the paintwork or, worse, damage the underside. Mark eased the van down the slope in first gear, his control precise. There were a couple of moments where the angle felt alarmingly steep, and I could hear the contents of cupboards shifting slightly inside, but Vinny, bless her sturdy heart, handled it like a pro. Finally, with a gentle bump, we were on the flat, grassy patch beside the stream. Mark switched off the engine, and an even deeper silence descended, if that were possible. He leaned back in his seat and let out a long, satisfied sigh. "We made it, Kaz. We actually made it." We both got out of the van and just stood there for a moment, drinking it all in. The sheer, unadulterated beauty of the place was overwhelming. The stream chuckled merrily beside us, sunlight dappled through the leaves, and the air was sweet with the scent of wildflowers. This was it. This was the freedom we had chased, the raw, untamed beauty that made all the uncertainties and challenges of van life worthwhile. "It's perfect," I said, my voice husky with emotion. Absolutely perfect. There was a shared sense of accomplishment, a quiet joy that comes from achieving something difficult together. We'd faced the sporty track, the mud, the doubts, and we'd emerged victorious, rewarded with this slice of paradise. The main event now was simply being here, soaking in the atmosphere of Le Val's secret. We leveled Vinny, a quick and easy task on the flat ground, and then set about making it home. The awning was unfurled, our comfortable camping chairs placed strategically to catch the afternoon sun and offer the best view of the stream. There was no one else around, not a soul. Just us, Vinny, and the wilderness. It felt like we were the only people on Earth, a feeling both exhilarating and profoundly peaceful. Mark, ever the pragmatist, did a quick walk around Vinny, checking for any new scratches or dings. "She's a trooper," he announced, patting her flank. "A few minor battle scars, but nothing serious." Our reaction to finally being settled in this idyllic spot was one of pure, unadulterated bliss. We high-fived, a slightly silly gesture for two people in their 50s, but it felt appropriate. Then Mark pulled me into a hug. "This is what it's all about, isn't it?" he murmured into my hair. "Finding places like this. Just us," I nodded, my eyes closed, simply relishing the moment. There was a deep satisfaction that came not just from the beauty of our surroundings, but from the journey it had taken to get here. The effort had made the reward all the sweeter. We made a pot of tea, the ritual comforting and familiar, and sat in our chairs, sipping slowly, watching the light change as the afternoon wore on. The immediate positive outcome was an overwhelming sense of peace. The stresses of navigating tricky roads, the minor anxieties about getting stuck, all melted away, replaced by a profound calm. The only sounds were the gentle burbling of the stream, the distant call of a cuckoo, and the rustle of leaves in the breeze. Even the flies seemed to be respectful of our solitude, buzzing lazily by without being overly intrusive. We watched a dipper bird bobbing for insects in the fast-flowing water, its movements quick and precise. Later, a red squirrel scampered down a nearby tree, paused to eye us curiously, then darted off into the undergrowth. It felt as though nature itself was welcoming us, sharing its secrets. The valley held us in its gentle embrace, and we felt a connection to the land, to the wildness, that was both humbling and uplifting. As the sun began to dip towards the horizon, casting long shadows across the valley floor, we started to think about dinner. There's a special kind of joy in preparing a meal in the van, surrounded by such beauty. It's simple, uncomplicated. Tonight, it was to be pasta with a fresh tomato and basil sauce, accompanied by a glass of local red wine we'd picked up a few days earlier. The little gas hob hissed companionably, and soon the aroma of garlic and herbs mingled with the scent of pine and damp earth. We ate outside, our little table set up between our chairs, the fading light painting the sky in breathtaking shades of orange, pink, and violet. That track was a bit hairy in places, wasn't it? Mark said, twirling pasta onto his fork. There was a moment back there, with the mud, when I genuinely thought we might be spending the night stuck halfway up a French mountain. He chuckled, but I knew he wasn't entirely joking. Me too, I admitted. My heart was in my mouth. But look at us now. Worth every nervous second, wouldn't you say? He nodded, his eyes sweeping across the tranquil scene. Absolutely. It's funny, isn't it? Sometimes the places that are hardest to reach are the ones that offer the most. We talked about the initial trepidation, the small wave of fear I'd felt when we first turned on to that unpromising track, and how that fear had gradually given way to determination, and finally, to this profound sense of reward. The transition to broader reflection happened naturally as darkness began to creep into the valley. The stars, unpolluted by city lights, started to prick the darkening velvet sky, astonishingly bright and numerous. We cleared away our dinner things and refilled our wine glasses, settling back into our chairs, wrapped in warm fleeces against the evening chill. And then, it happened. A tiny, intermittent spark of light flickered near the stream bank. Then another, and another. Mark, look, I whispered, pointing. Fireflies. Dozens of them, then hundreds, perhaps thousands, rising from the damp grass, their tiny bioluminescent lanterns winking on and off, creating a magical, ethereal display. It was like a scene from a fairy tale. We sat in stunned silence, mesmerized by the silent, sparkling dance. This, I thought, was the essence of it all. The fear we'd felt earlier, the fear of getting stuck, of the unknown, of being too isolated, seemed so distant now, almost insignificant in the face of such enchantment. The fireflies were an unexpected gift, a reward we hadn't even known we were seeking. They illuminated not just the darkness of the valley, but also a deeper truth about this life we'd chosen. It was about embracing the unknown, pushing past those self-imposed boundaries of comfort and fear, because that's where the real magic often lies. I've never seen anything like it, Mark said softly, his voice full of wonder. It's breathtaking. He reached for my hand, and we sat there, hand in hand, two souls in their 50s, watching nature's light show, feeling incredibly small and yet profoundly connected to something vast and beautiful. This experience, this whole day, perfectly encapsulated why we had embarked on this van life journey after 50. It wasn't just about seeing new places, it was about experiencing them, truly immersing ourselves in them. It was about the freedom to choose the difficult path, the unpaved road, in search of something authentic and unspoiled. You simply wouldn't find this kind of magic in a conventional campground, neatly parked in a designated bay. This was earned. This was wild. This was the freedom that comes from being self-sufficient, from relying on your own resourcefulness and your partner's support. It reinforced our belief that life doesn't have to become smaller or more cautious as you get older, it can become richer, wilder, more filled with wonder, if you're willing to take a few chances. The fireflies danced on, oblivious to our philosophical musings, their tiny lights a testament to the quiet, persistent beauty of the natural world. The key takeaway from this day, this adventure into Le Val's secret, was multifaceted. It was about the quiet courage it takes to push past fear, even the small, nagging anxieties that can so easily hold you back. It was about the incredible strength and joy found in shared experience, in tackling challenges as a team. Mark and I had navigated not just a tricky track, but also our own moments of doubt, and we'd come through it stronger, our bond deepened by the shared adventure. And it was, most profoundly, about gratitude. Gratitude for the beauty of this hidden valley, for the unexpected magic of the fireflies, for the health and ability to live this extraordinary life, 1 mile, 1 story at a time. The fireflies, with their silent, luminous ballet, felt like a blessing, a confirmation that we were exactly where we were meant to be. As the firefly display began to dwindle and the air grew colder, we reluctantly retreated into the warmth of Vinny. Tomorrow, Mark said, yawning, we should explore up that stream. See where it leads. And then, of course, we have to navigate our way back out of this valley. Hopefully, the track will seem less daunting on the way up, he winked. Or maybe we'll just decide to stay here forever, I joked, though a part of me was entirely serious. The thought of waking up to this peace for a few more days was incredibly tempting. But the road, with its promise of new discoveries, always called. It had been, without a doubt, one of those truly unforgettable days. From the initial thrill of the chase, the challenge of the sporty track, the minor setbacks, the teamwork, the triumphant arrival, to the serene evening and the magical visitation of the fireflies, it was a perfect little microcosm of the van life adventure. We had faced a little bit of fear, embraced a whole lot of freedom, and been rewarded with an incandescent beauty that would stay with us long after we'd left this secret valley. The quiet hum of the fridge was the only sound inside Vinny as we snuggled down for the night, hearts full, minds at peace. This is Karen, and that was Mark, and you've just shared a little piece of our wild camping adventure with us, here in our beloved Vinny. We hope this story of freedom, a touch of manageable fear, and the unexpected wonder of fireflies has brought a little bit of that magic to you. It's moments like these that reaffirm why we chose this path, trading routine for the open road, and why we believe it's never too late to chase those dreams, no matter how sporty the track might seem. Until next time, keep seeking out your own secret valleys, keep pushing your boundaries, and keep living fully, 1 mile, 1 story at a time.